Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of CME in Conversation. I'm Dr. Liz Stafford, and I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Ally Daubney as this episode's guest. Ally, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, hi Liz, thanks so much for inviting me. I guess what I say about myself depends on who I'm talking to and what day of the week it is, because I have quite an eclectic career. Primarily, though, I'm a teacher in all sorts of contexts, and I've worked in primary schools, special schools, secondary schools, instrumental teaching, and for many years, part-time doing teacher training and teacher education in mostly Sussex University, but 2 others before that. And I'm an honorary senior lecturer at the University of Sussex, so I ought not forget that bit.
Fantastic. So you've had a really kind of varied amount of experience across different settings, which I think is going to be really helpful for our discussion today. So as you and our viewers know, these I've been calling them video interviews, but everyone else calls them podcasts. So what the hell? These podcasts are designed to support our CME learners with various aspects of the qualification, but obviously they're also watched by lots of other people as well. And the little bit of the qualification that I was hoping to talk to you today was around pedagogy, methodology, and also kind of government policy around music education. So to kick off, I guess what I would like to ask you first is there's lots of kind of competing pedagogies and methodologies in the music education world. And so it can be a bit confusing, I think, when we're trying to kind of select how we should do things. So I wondered what your opinion was and what kind of things should we be looking for when we're trying to assess the value of a pedagogy or methodology for use in our own setting?
Okay, that's quite a big question, isn't it? I think I start off by saying it's about your children in your school, in your setting, in your class. Basically, the value of it is the children you hold in your hand right now. And so the word select is quite an interesting choice of word, because that assumes that we have quite a lot, or certainly more than one approach or methodology or way of thinking about things. So I think if we go back to thinking about, for us in our context, in our school and with our pupils, I know you call your teachers learners, but our pupils as learners and our teachers as learners as well, not just in this context, but in school, then thinking about why do we go to school? Why do we have music in school? What do we want from music in school? What do we value? And what do we think is a really, what is it that we're actually trying to achieve? So if we had a set of values, I'm imagining that obviously fun and feeling musical, I would hope, would be right in the middle of that. So if we're trying to encourage our pupils, our young people, to be doing something, enacting something musical that makes them actually feel musical, then that's going to help them to want to learn. So I think we have to think about those things in our own setting, and that's not a 2-minute job. It's a kind of sit down, and I'm sure as part of your course, your learners come up with things around philosophy of education and why they think the music education they want is suitable for their pupils. So I think that's really where we start from. So I think if we go from that point, and we are reflective and reflexive, and we do that in a way that we get to the end of a class, a unit, a concert, whatever it may be, and even during the process, and think, what are they getting out of it? So if I was to mentally sit myself in the chair of 5 or 6 pupils, going to get my terminology here, at the end of each lesson or during my lesson, and just think, okay, well, did that hit the spot for them? Is it moving their learning forward? Does it make them feel musical? Does it make them learn whatever it is that I've decided? And I think the biggest thing is to try and be able to separate knowledge, in the sense of having this body of knowledge that Batch, whoever he was, lived in 1685, I think it was, to 1750 or something. It's like, well, okay, that's all very well, but what does that actually, what do I want them to do? And probably if you asked people about what it is to be musical and feel musical, it's about the doing of, from which the learning comes. So if you're trying to think about what we're trying to achieve in each setting, then I think we have to go back to those. But beyond that, we have to give credence as well to that children don't come into a classroom in any as an empty vessel in any sense, let alone musical. And Sue Young talks in her early years work about how children have got thousands of song fragments in their heads, and they start making things with them. And if you sit and watch small children, they sit on the floor and they bang saucepans, and they're trying out sounds and they're doing things, and that they're learning through that process. It isn't the other way around, that we're giving them knowledge and saying, look, this is what happens if you hit a saucepan on the, with a wooden stick. So thinking about what's the way to get to. So we have to have lots of opportunities, really, I think, to be able to get to that point, and be able to kind of have a smorgasbord of ideas and materials and influences. And if we don't have that, we don't have that selection which you're talking about. So for me, I think one of the things is throwing off the straitjacket of his unit of work. I've got to teach it as it's written, and some of them are so prescriptive, and just thinking about, okay, did it do what I want? Did it get the outcomes I wanted? What could I do better? What do the children think? Take their ideas and voices into this, particularly in primary education, and thinking, because I only say primary education because I'm assuming that most of your teachers are primary or instrumental. Would that be right?
The majority are primary or instrumental, yes. And we've got some international learners as well who are teaching right the way across all the age ranges.
Yeah, but actually it applies equally to any teacher. But yeah, being able to kind of throw off that straitjacket and think about it means that you have to have more than one. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You've got to have things up your sleeve, and you've got to understand what it is and why you're doing it. So that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, but I hope that's okay.
That was really helpful, and I totally agree that where you've got to start from is what you're trying to get out of it in the first place, your kind of vision and your values for it. And I think sometimes people start in the middle of the process, don't they? They start with what I need to teach as opposed to why I'm teaching it in the first place.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I think so. And I think, a flexible teacher and good teaching kind of reassesses that minute by minute, let alone at the beginning of a lesson, at the end of a lesson, or at the end of a unit of work. But actually, when you see great teaching, it's the teacher being responsive to what's unfolding in front of their eyes and being able to take something off in a different direction, and just go with that flexibility and have some kind of faith in yourself, that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, really wise words. Thank you. I'm wondering, and already I'm going off piste, so I apologize. I'm wondering if you have particularly strong feelings about, what elements there need to be within a pedagogical approach to make it successful, or do you think it's completely context dependent, or do you think there are, specific things that you would expect to see in kind of good, for want of a better phrase, high quality music teaching?
Oh, what would I want to see? I'd want to see the teacher and the children having an understanding of where they are, where they're going, why they're doing something in the moment as it unfolds, but actually still having that awe and wonder about it. So I think sometimes we go for like, oh, there's a big reveal at the end of the lesson, but you've lost 75% of your kids along the way. So kind of keeping them motivated and curious as you kind of go through, keeping it musical so that there's plenty of musicking going on, and lots of opportunities for that. But within any class, it doesn't matter where you are and what context you're teaching in. Children come in with such different musical experiences and soundtracks to their life, and things that they can talk about passionately and do really well that may not be in that square box of what we've got in our lesson today. But we need to have our radar up for that all the time. So I think for me, great teaching is knowing that, and knowing how to excite a child who's perhaps already very experienced in, I don't know, playing the tabla, or being in the flute ensemble with their 3 notes, but they can keep really well in time, and if we keep going back to, I was talking to a teacher about this yesterday, actually, it was the Ode to Joy effect, this particular, it was one of the people I was talking to at graduation, and they said, oh, every class we've been into recently, they're just sitting playing Ode to Joy with one hand. So what's the skill in that? You know, it's all in one, it's all in one position. For some children, that mostly, you know, appropriate, but actually it's so unmusically done, it doesn't pull on what the children are actually really capable of doing if you did things like, you know, in a different way. I think in terms of primary, where I see really great musicking is because music's kind of through the ether of the school and certainly through the ether of the class, and that it's something that culturally they will do. And when the door is shut, sometimes the teacher goes, oh, I'm rubbish at music and I'm really unmusical, and then you shut the door and you can walk past their classroom and you can hear them all belting out Wonderwall with the teacher and the kids, you know, and there's this kind of musicking thing, this musical culture going on, that's something that's shared, that's kind of beyond the pages of a scheme of work, and knowing and taking all the opportunities to kind of extend that within the formal curriculum, but also across their musical life within the classroom and outside the classroom, for me, makes the great teaching. I think what also makes the great teaching is people who are willing to take a risk, who are willing to kind of tinker with things, to model, to demonstrate, to get things wrong, to play along, to be part of, to stand back, you know, all of those different skills that we would talk about. And at the same time, being the person who's right there. And again, it comes back to the radar, doesn't it? Knowing where to be, when, what to say, whether to lead somebody to something or ask them open questions, or gauge right now that that child can't make a decision. I'm going to give them this decision or that decision. Which one? Okay, now we've got that decision. Might be that sound. What do you want to do with it next? You know, or rolling a dice and going, well, one is change the dynamics and two is change the tempo and whatever. So giving them the tools to be able to take the risks themselves, I think, is another part for me of watching great teaching.
Oh, thank you. That was really, really helpful. And I know our learners will really appreciate that. And the idea that, you know, yes, there are some things that we can do, like making the lessons really musical, that are really important, but also we've got to be open to, you know, going in a different direction if we want to, or being flexible and not being kind of tied into those schemes. That kind of leads me on quite nicely as well to what was going to be my second question, but is now my third question because I snuck one in that you weren't expecting. Um, so one of the things that our learners are asked to do is compare some pedagogical approaches of their choice with current initiatives, policies, and their influence. And I think it's fair to say that you and I, and probably not alone in noticing that in recent years, perhaps kind of pedagogy and government policy have been a little bit at odds when it comes to music. And I think some of our learners and, you know, teachers in general have kind of struggled with that. They feel like they've been pulled in opposite directions almost, sort of from this is how I want my music to be and this is what I know to be good music, but this is what I'm being told to do. So I wondered how you would approach that conflict as a teacher in order to do the best for your pupils.
Gosh, that's a hard question because it depends on the context in which you're teaching. So I was visiting a school a couple of weeks ago, and the music teacher, secondary music teacher, who's kind of got the role, if you like, of working across the others with no time given, to put in place a primary curriculum that's been designed by a primary non kind of music teaching teacher with a bit of time on their timetable. And then they're expected to teach this in the same way across every school. And now she's fighting well, this is ridiculous and this is impossible because the learners in the schools are so very different. So I think, you know, that takes a certain amount of confidence to be able to be able to do that. What would I say? I'd probably say read around things, watch people do things, have lots of, like I said before, have a toolkit of things and approaches, and don't be afraid to try them out. If you're sure of what the learning is, you know, it's better to be able to show somebody else a better way and say, no, this doesn't work because. But I think there is a huge amount of tension actually, because the recent, might I add, non-statutory documents that might have come out from the Department of Education they're very straitjacketed. They're very dry, and to some extent they might work for some teachers. Most teachers don't talk about them, but in schools that I go to have kind of gone, oh, I've taken the decision, it's non-statutory and that's not for me, which is not a bad thing because it shows that they know a range of approaches and a range of things to go to. So putting that tactfully, I think having a toolkit of having looked at different things, the best we can do for our children is to have been able to have the time to go and look at different schemes or different approaches and actually to take ownership of what we do. And it really comes back to what we were talking about earlier, that if we know what we do and we value it, then we're in a much stronger position to be able to fight our corner. And that's not to say that for some people valuing it will be a very kind of inner box musicking idea. But the great teaching that I often see, just it's like it's got Mr. Tickle arms and it kind of reaches out with tentacles and takes bits of this and thinks, how can I adapt that here? But I do understand that is really a conflict for a teacher to be able to do that. And I think if we can be a bit more visionary about music education and let go of some of these things, which I'm very much hoping we might be moving in a direction of, then hopefully that means it's kind of almost giving us the permission. And I think that's a lot of the time where the teaching is almost going wrong, because they're kind of going, here's what you do, here's your PowerPoints, here's this, here's that, here's the other, don't straighten the path. And so, I think that's difficult to do. I think things like doing your course is absolutely brilliant, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you today, but it means that these people are willing to be looking outwards. Your learners are seeking something different. They're seeking different pedagogical ideas. I just grabbed a book that popped through my door a couple of days ago, which is about instrumental teaching, which I do happen to have a chapter in, so it is a slight plug, but it's called Instrumental Teaching, Perspectives and Challenges. And to me, if we can look at perspectives and we can look at challenges, then we're in a much stronger position. And I think one of the problems is that there are many educators who have either not been given the skills or the permission, or just plain do not want to see different perspectives and different challenges, and are happy with that being how it is for various reasons.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right, of course. And for me, I suppose when I'm talking to teachers who are sort of feeling the strain between what they would like to do and what they think they've been told to do, it's easy for me because I don't have to enact it myself, but I'm a bit maverick and I often go, well, who's going to know at the end of the day? If you've been told, for example, that you have to teach the modern music curriculum and it won't work in your school, and for whatever reason, I can think of numerous ones for the majority of schools.
Well, I mean, it just doesn't it doesn't excite and extend in the ways that it is possible, and it won't work with many communities, in the sense that if we're culturally looking at what we've got inside a school, then we should work with what we have, think about our cultural context as well as everything else, socioeconomic context, whatever, all of it.
Absolutely. So when I sort of talk to people in that regard, I often say, well, who's going to know? Okay, take the bits of the model music curriculum that you like and tell everyone you're doing the model music curriculum, but make it your own and make it better. That's what we already do with the national curriculum, because the national curriculum is so flexible that really, you have to join the dots anyway. And we've got the same thing.
You don't need dots till you get to Key Stage 2. Let me just remind you.
Also very true. Unless you're doing the model music curriculum and then it's in Key Stage 1, but there we go.
Well, indeed. If we pulled it away from being just about the model music curriculum, there's a really serious point in there actually about train the ear before the eye. And children's capacity developmentally to read and record music is never going to be there with what they can actually do. And it's a really slight digression, but I used to share my office at Roehampton when I was there with a guy who's doing a PhD. He was Japanese and really lovely chap. And it was about karaoke. And it was about ordinary people, if you like, not people who did musical jobs, going to karaoke a few nights a week. And he was looking at the musical skills that they developed from this. And if you think about it, that's equivalent and similar to children sitting in the car, singing along with the radio, driving to school, you know, all of those kinds of ways in which music is kind of, I often say to people, put a song in your head. Let's do it now. Put a song in your head, Liz.
Okay.
A song. All right. Can you sing a bit of it?
Can I sing you a bit of it?
I thought that was your thing.
It is my thing. I'm also just slightly mindful that my daughter has got all her teenage friends downstairs.
Okay, but sing it anyway. Come on.
Well, randomly, what I got in my head was "Oh mio bambino caro," which is very, because I've been practicing it.
Yeah. Okay. Put a song that your teenage daughter and her little set will put into your head. What are they listening to downstairs? What can you hear throbbing out from that?
Taylor Swift exclusively, all out of the day.
Sorry, I'm not sure about Taylor Swift. Could you sing me a bit?
I could I sing you? Oh, yeah. What, on the internet? That sounds like a really good idea.
You might get sued, so we'll leave it at that. But, we will, only because it's Taylor Swift, not because you're singing, to be clear. But you know, that Taylor Swift song that you put there, I'm sure that you didn't slavishly, actually, and your daughter and her friends didn't slavishly follow the notation and learn it and think about, you know, Taylor Swift's amazing kind of voice inflection and all of that kind of stuff. You know, they didn't learn the theory of how to do that before they actually went and did it and sung along in your car when they're going to wherever, or singing along downstairs now. So there's a really serious point in there, isn't there, about this thing about learning music and how we actually learn music, and we use our ears very much, you know, in that. We've gone right off topic. I'm so sorry. But
no,
it's true.
It's all right. It's all right. Any chance to talk about Taylor Swift in this household is they're always taken very well. And yeah, you're right.
To the headline that says Ally Daubney and Liz Stafford chew the fat on Taylor Swift. Right. Anyway, moving on.
Well, we need to make it Taylor Swift v someone though, like Beethoven, exactly. Or
no, I think we just did. Yeah.
Oh, Beethoven's boring. Taylor Swift v Shostakovich. That's what we should absolutely make the next.
Well, I took my husband once to the proms, and it was Shostakovich, and I'll get him to tell you about it another time when we're not on air.
Well, I recently took my daughter to Taylor Swift at 4 hours' notice in Cardiff. We don't live anywhere near Cardiff, and I think that was a really good example of what you were saying, actually, because I think I know a lot of Taylor Swift songs. That girl was on her feet for 3.5 hours and she sang every single lyric and every single note of every single song. And I have never heard her sing at home. Losing my earbuds. That's a classic sign for this podcast. And, you know, so there's been no element of her practicing it or, you know, reading the music, as you say. It's all come from just listening and just engaging with the music, you know, on a sort of informal level.
But I bet you she really wanted to be there, right?
Yeah.
She really just wanted to be there. She wanted to be part of that. And that's what you see often, like, you know, if you put musicals on in schools, and you get children crawling out the woodwork to come and do stuff, who just want to be part of it and have these amazing skills, actually, you know, and this kind of amazing musicianship that if we don't give them those opportunities, then what are we doing for them in music education? And if we can't bring that into the music class, then, you know, we separate straight away. This is school music, this is real music, you know, so trying to bring these worlds together. And I think that's what that other curriculum that we were just discussing doesn't particularly do well, you know, and so we need to think about those things in what we choose and why we choose it and what we want to do with it. And yeah, and if we can be excited about it, I can see how excited you are about Taylor Swift. Then you know, if we can be excited about it, then they, you know, can be excited about it. And that, I think, is also really important. Not just about their music, if you like, but taking them to other things that we are excited about, but trying to make them feel excited to be part of something and feel that it was worthwhile, and they're doing something and they're being musical.
Yes, yeah. And the kind of getting rid of any sense of hierarchy between our music and their music and other people's music, and it all just being music and all being equally valid and equally worthy of exploration, I think.
And we have to hope that we know we have a curriculum review coming up. We have to hope that recognises that there are some really detrimental statements actually in our very short bullet point national curriculum. You know, the great composers. Well, who are the great composers? You know, there's many. We have to surely be able to critique and go back to putting perspective and challenge on things and thinking, why do I think that's really good? And why do I think Taylor Swift was amazing? Am I going to put them, you know, we go back to that famous thing, don't we, with the Arctic monkeys, and how they're apparently, according to an ex-government minister now, not very good music, but some people would disagree with that, and they know why they would. So being much more open actually with what we want, what we accept, if you like, what we promote, what we do and how we do it. I think, you know, let's just take some ownership, do something exciting. School
Well,
holiday.
that's segued very nicely into my final question, which I think when we'd organised to have this chat, we didn't know we were getting a general election, and then we got a general election, and we've had a change of government. And as you say, we know there's going to be a curriculum review. It's likely that there's going to be lots of other changes to education as well. So what would you like to see in terms of music education policy and initiatives moving forwards?
That is such a big question, and I could talk about it all day. Well, firstly, I'd like to see music being taught in schools regularly. I'd like to see teachers being supported to do that. I'd like to have enough bums on seats from teachers, frankly, to be able to do that. So there's some policy changes and some things around teaching and around music that need to change to actually just get people into the classroom. From a teacher's perspective, I'd like to see music-specific education, pedagogy from a music perspective. We've gone so far down the road of generic pedagogy that actually kind of works against musical stuff. And I think what we're learning is that we've lost a lot of that musical thinking and the musical history in terms of education research and that kind of stuff, which we need to look at and look at it in perspective of where we are now, and be able to challenge it, critique it, and know why we want to do that. So I think going back to professionalising music education, or just teaching actually, would be, you know, open doors to more people perhaps wanting to be able to do that. Well, to be able to do that, we have to have music in schools. We have to look at what are the blockages and what are the structures that get in the way. And obviously there's accountability as a big part of that. We have an EBAC and we have an accountability system that just does not recognise or value arts education. And I'm actually not just quietly hopeful, but actually almost shouting from the rooftops hopeful about lots of the things I've heard Bridget Phillipson and her team say about the importance of the arts, the importance of the music, how every child should be able to access that and have that. So I think and hope that we must be in for a philosophical kind of change in the direction of education. But we need to look at the whole system for that to happen. You know, we need to look at GCSEs and go, oh, is that, because, you know, there's a lot in that we could chew the fat on all day as well. Is that good enough for the breadth of people that we have? Does it give them the skills? What other qualifications are out there that have now been knocked off? I'm thinking of the Rock School RSL level 2 qualifications that the DFE just sliced away and said, no, you're not doing these anymore if you want them to count in a bucket. But actually they did appeal to you know, a range of people. So it comes back to that valuing people for what they want out of their music. We have to take music out of this little special box and think, music has lots of things which it also contributes to other areas of world, society, film, dance, plays, all sorts of multimedia stuff, computer games, you name it. We need to have all of those people. We need to find qualifications. And we need to keep opening the pathways up as we go through. So I would like education to do something about that. What does that entail? I think if we've done that kind of in a kind of deep and meaningful way and gone through those processes, it means that the government haven't just been to find the people who are going to nod and say, yes, I agree with you, and just enact what they're perhaps told to do or being chosen for a particular reason of that. We need to have lots of voices around that. And we need to accept that we're going to disagree with people sometimes, but we need to put a child in the middle, not just one child, but lots of different children, and think about what is the music education for them? What does it feel like? I keep going back to that thing about feeling, because I think it's hugely important. And I say that because I know quite a lot of young people over the years who I've seen in different contexts. I can think of one at school where the child was, she'd finished her theory, and I was in the classroom and the teacher said, oh, I think she writes songs or something, go and have a listen. So I went and listened to this song and I said to this young person, she was just going into year 9, I said, oh, that's amazing, into year 10, sorry, she was in year 9. Are you going to do music next year? And she looked at me in horror and she went, well, I'm rubbish at music. And she just sung me this amazing, beautiful song that she'd composed. And I said, no, you're not getting this. Why do you think you're rubbish at music? And she said, well, basically in her school, it was all about, singing in 4-part harmony, singing in the chapel, playing in the symphony orchestra. And if you didn't do that, you were an outsider. So we can't have an education system that makes children who really are passionate about music feel they don't belong. So I think education policy has to be able to think about that and find the right people to do that kind of stuff. A lot of that thinking was done with, things like Robin Alexander and his primary review, although it's, quite a few years ago. There's things they could definitely now go back and pick up on. But we need more voices. We need more music. We need to just think about the everybody-ness of it, I think, and just open it back up, because I feel it's become very closed and narrow. And as a researcher, I say the words you write down on a piece of paper, even though they may be few, are very important about how they shape things. And just changing a word here and there makes an awful lot of difference, because it doesn't matter whether you say this is compulsory or something that you just have to have as your guiding principle. If you write it down and it says Department of Education on it, people go, oh, better do something about that. And there's a lot of power just in having a document that says Ofsted. Oh, we'll come back to them. And Department of Education, Ofsted are probably for another day, Liz. But, the music makers are the people who are in our schools. They are our teachers, they're our teaching assistants, they're our heads, our deputy heads, our cleaners, our children, of course. Everybody is part of that musical community, and the national curriculum needs to kind of pick that up. What we haven't really touched on there, apart from Ofsted, is around the place of hubs and music teaching and whole class instrumental teaching. And, if we're looking at a system, firstly, we should value those people, and they've gone through an awful lot of hard work over the last year or so. But, having them as a resource is an amazing thing that we have. So we have to hang on to that, but we have to know, and they have to know, and the Arts Council has to know why it's important and what does beyond good really look like. So I think, there's an awful lot. What do you think?
What do I think? I think a lot of the things that you think. I think we should get rid of the EBAC. That would help. I think we should just quietly retire the model music curriculum into the bin.
I think a great extent, so I'm not too worried about that.
Well, yeah. I think that music hubs need funding properly for more than 1 year at a time. And I think we need to do some serious work around understanding that music education doesn't just mean learning an instrument.
Yeah.
And that in fact the majority of most children's music education will be in the classroom, nothing to do with learning an instrument. And I think just generally we need to somehow make teaching a valued and respected profession again, because we don't have enough teachers to teach music currently. I know all sorts of secondary schools who are having to either give some or all of their Key Stage 3 teaching to non-specialists. And primary, again, let's not go into it now. I've got quite strong feelings about the idea of specialists in primary, and bearing in mind that I was a specialist in primary, I don't have anything against them per se. What I don't like is people saying you have to have a specialist and it's impossible to teach music unless you're a specialist, because of course
it sends a message to children and families and communities that only special people can only special people can teach music. Therefore, only special people can do music, by association of this kind of idea. And that's why, for me, it's about the whole community. And something that, if we go back to the glory days, whenever they may have been, I think there were glory days in bits of each one, but actually Sing Up was absolutely brilliant for building capacity through schools. Building singing as a kind of fundamental, and it is a fundamental musical skill. It's a knowledge, it's an activity, it's all of those things. But the work that they did, which sadly is often now it's not free to schools. So if I could do one thing, it would be bring back that kind of entitlement, if you like, but put the kind of razzmatazz and the joy around that, so that schools can feel part of something. I'm involved in an absolutely brilliant project in Newham, which is around musical enrichment, and that's funded by Newham Council, and they make grants to schools through Newham Music for music enrichment. That means they have to have something to enrich, and the system that they've put in place is so robustly accountable. And I think, for me, if you give people money, you have to know what it's being spent on and why they want it and what comes out the other side, not necessarily in the instant, but also to be able to follow that in the long term. And that kind of model of excellence, I think, actually could be applied so much more in the dishing out of money. I was looking yesterday actually back at a project and thinking how many thousands and thousands of pounds this organisation had to work with such a small handful of teachers, because what they set up in the first place wasn't good enough. And it wasn't what teachers needed right now. And we're not necessarily the people to say, what do teachers need right now? We need to go to them and ask them, and then be part of this process. Not just the famous teachers, but, the other people who day in, day out do a really good job in many ways, and they make music inclusive, and they reach out and they quietly work in partnership with other schools, with their music education or music hubs as they are now, and all of those. So I think, to me, as part of this curriculum review, somebody actually needs to sit down and kind of grasp the nettle on the whole of this. What is this music education beast? It's another of those Mr. Tickle moments. It's got little bits coming in from everywhere, and and look at what do we contribute and what should we fund, and why is it important, and what's it doing for our children. And it's not just what it does for their music education. I think in a way we've gone too far with the yes, but what's the musical learning? Because as part of this project that I do in Newham, going to schools often and meet head teachers, and they all talk about the mental health and the well-being and aspects, and the way that it helps children to want to come to school on a Friday because music's on. We should not undervalue that. And I think we have gone too far the other way of going, no, it's all about the musical learning. But it isn't, because actually it does so much more when you put the children and the holistic children, not just child, in the middle of it. I'll shut up now.
Actually, that's kind of veering into something that we do in Unit 1 of the CME, where our learners have to do a survey with their pupils to find out how they feel about music in general, and then the specific music activity that they're taking part in. And it's always really interesting to see the results. And everybody's always found something surprising. It's never been very, predictable. And it's, they, they think they like music because of this, or they like this particular activity because of this, or they don't like this particular aspect of it. And it sort of helps them to then develop into their practice and start refining their own pedagogy as a result. So we've kind of come full circle there, I think, in this
A project that I did years ago actually was looking at children's voices, collecting children's voices in different ways. And what we did was we got 20 voice recorders, and we just gave them out to different groups of children in the school and said, go and talk to your friends about music. So they did it for us effectively without doing a questionnaire. There is nothing wrong with doing a questionnaire. It's a very worthy thing to do. But it did enlighten us a lot about the questions they asked, because the questions they asked were just as important. And another thing we did one year was a part of Joint Practice Development Day, which is where all the teachers across Brighton and Hove, where I live, used to come together, is we asked secondary teachers just choose pupils, and they followed them through their school week, or the child followed themselves through their school week, and effectively they kept a kind of audio diary. And then I'm just off to do my trumpet practice. Oh, right, yeah, I'm going off to the big band now. I'm playing in the swing band out of school. Oh, I'm playing the electric guitar in the garage with my mates, all that kind of thing. And then the question to them at the end of the week, which is the killer question, is, so what does school music education have to do with you being a musician? So it's an interesting other ways that your learners can look at trying to get to really listening to and hearing what children want to talk about and what they want to say. I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you. So do I, she says.
No, I think giving them those skills to be able to go and open their minds and critique and challenge and get different perspectives is enormously important.
It's really important. It's really, really important to be able to think for yourself and to be able to have the courage of your own convictions and go out and go, okay, I know this is the right thing to do, so I'm going to do that in my context, in my way, and that's how it's going to be. It's really
and it's okay to change your mind over time, because I do look back at younger me and some of my lessons in days gone by and just cringe, and that's okay too. Sorry, 7RM. Friday afternoons.
Yeah. I mean, I did all my training backwards. So I started as a teacher, and then after about 3 years, I then went and did a part-time PGCE alongside, because it was music, so nobody cared that you weren't actually qualified. And I remember being very early on, being in, I think it was a year 2 class, and we were doing class singing. And I taught them the first verse of something, and then I went, oh, great. And now same tune, different words. And obviously they all stopped singing. And I was like, well, what's happening? And one of the teachers had to go, they can't read that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. So that's what I really mean about the holistic child, and knowing, and in primary, a lot of teachers teach primary subjects as well. I'm one of those dinosaurs that did middle school. So I got to teach the whole primary for a year doing that, and I have taught primary since. But I think that's a really helpful thing too, just to know how children learn in other contexts and how they are in other contexts and all of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Ali. That's been really fascinating. We've kind of talked about a whole range of different topics, which I know are going to be really helpful to our learners. So as I say again, thank you very much. I know it'll be really useful for everybody. For those of you who are watching, if you want to have these episodes sent directly to you, if you want to be notified, there's a subscribe button below the video. You can click on that, and then you will always know when a new one comes out, which is every month, not on a particular day, just when I get organised. And oh, exciting. Look, wow, both earbuds out now. I feel like if you're a regular watcher of these series, I reckon you could do a drinking game based on when you think my earbuds are going to fall out. That's my suggestion for your summer holiday. So thank you very much. If you want to know more about the CME, there's stuff in the caption below the video. Thank you again, Ali, and look forward to sharing another episode with you all soon.